Welcome, everybody. This is Let's Talk. We're having a discussion today on mental health awareness and erasing the stigma of Black mental health. I want to thank everybody that's logged in on Facebook to my group, or those that may just be joining us. Today's topic is going to be very key to helping us understand more about mental health. Mental health. My name is Asha Sims, and I am a therapist and holistic wellness practitioner with Ashakti Wellness and Yoga. And so, what we're going to discuss today is going to be a critical discussion and helping us understand in our community about mental health and the stigma of mental health. One thing we have to understand, well, even as a therapist, I'm seeing the lack of engagement often in our culture with wanting to engage in mental health services. And this is a part about erasing the stigma, how to release the stigma to get the help that we need so that we can heal. Many stigmas that we deal with in the African American population. One is we come from a very prideful culture, even from trauma that we have incurred from slavery. We're very prideful. And honestly, one of the last things that many in our culture want to actually say they admit to is that they're having any type of mental health illnesses or imbalances. Because again, it goes into the psyche of feeling different, feeling not normal, feeling less than. And in the long run, by us not acknowledging that we're having issues or even having the knowledge or education to understand what it is causing more mental health imbalances and also contributing to generational trauma as well. So today's topic, I want to have an informal discussion about how do we erase the stigma. What does it look like? We sometimes are not wanting to come forward because of what we feel the stigma that has been attached to it. But understanding it's this is what is keeping mental health illness perpetuating a lot of times is the denial or lack of knowledge of what is occurring so that we can do what we need to do to help. So, before we get started, share this on your page with others you think that may be interested. Forward it, share it, like the page of Shakti Wellness so that we can get more listeners or viewers so that we can get a better understanding of what's going on with how do we can erase the stigma for mental health. So the next thing I want to do before I bring on this lady, Barjohn is going to be a speaker today, and I know her in so many different levels of relationships, from personal to business collaborations, and even involving in helping her with her healing practice. So I'm going to bring on Ms. Barjohn Lee. She is a mental health advocate, and she's also the executive director of a nonprofit organization called SolidShe. As I have to show my shirt, I don't know if y'all can see my shirt, but I have my SolidShe t-shirt on to support and advocate for. So before we really get into the meat and potatoes of what we talk about, just tell us a little bit about yourself. If you want to share what your diagnosis is and how long have you been aware of it.
Okay, so good afternoon. As she stated, my name is Barjohn Lee. I'm the founder of SolidShe Incorporated, which is a mental health nonprofit organization in Charlotte. And I started that nonprofit because of my own personal journey with depression, bipolar disorder, and anxiety. And I was first diagnosed with depression at the age of 13, followed by bipolar at the age of 16. So I've been on this journey for about 23 years now.
Okay. And your journey looks beautiful. You're looking beautiful. So with that, as we talk about the stigma, and one of the things that we don't know what we're working with. When you were at 13, and who was it that first saw that they felt there might have been some imbalances? What were the behaviors that you were displaying? What were some of the symptoms that raised concern?
Okay, so I was always like a popular girl in school. I was an athlete. I had a lot of friends. And then it seemed like I took a shift where I felt like I didn't fit in anymore. And I began feeling really, really sad and crying for no reason. Um, didn't really want to be around people, didn't really want to be in the common areas of school like the lunchroom or recess or anything like that, because I felt like I was on stage and I felt like people were staring at me and talking about me. And so it just made me feel really, really low. And it made me feel like I didn't belong with any group of people. So I began to isolate myself. And I would spend like a whole lot of time in the guidance counselors' offices or with my teachers, because I felt like at that moment they were the only people who could really get me or understand what I was going through, because I was only 13 and I lost interest in things that 13-year-olds do. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know who the first person was that noticed the change in me. I just knew that I felt different. And so I began to ask questions.
So you kind of took the healing upon yourself, which that says a lot for at that age, to really know what was occurring. And I think for those who don't understand bipolar can cause chemical imbalances, mood imbalances. It has, some people may go through manic moments, some people may go through depressive moments. So I think how you first became diagnosed with depression was the first warning sign, and I'm glad you acknowledged it, because that's going to even help those that are parents and seeing what is going on with their children when they take that major swing in behaviors and become more withdrawn. That's like warning signs to be aware of and everything at that time. So when you were diagnosed at 13, and it sounds like you have always been active, and you started going to therapy at that time, or not at that point? When would you say you first started getting assistance for it?
I believe it was at the age of 13. I just don't remember exactly how it happened. I just know that my grades started to slip. And like I said, I really just started isolating myself and I started acting different. And I remember somewhat having conversations with my mother and my brother and my aunt, who at the time worked at Western Psychiatric Institute in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So she was able to like kind of guide me through the process and give me some answers that I think I was looking for. Mm-hmm. So I do believe like somewhere between the age of 13 and 14, I was able to see a therapist and I was able to, answer some questions, and they were able to, I believe, observe me to the point where they diagnosed me with the depression. And then I remember getting linked with the guidance counselors at my school at the time. Mm-hmm. And I would spend a lot of time in there just talking about different issues that I felt, were upon me. Mm-hmm.
So when you were getting the assistance and you did feel like you had a support system, what would you say at that age could be a barrier to a teen? Like, as a professional, we always can put in interventions and say this is what will work. As a therapist, I can do a treatment plan and say this work and this is needed. But I think it's always important to get what those who have experienced, gone through, to what would an average 13-year-old that's going through that dark place, what would you say was the most effective treatment for you at that time? Was it just having the support? Was it counseling? Were they introducing meds at that time?
I think it was a variety of things, but first and foremost, the ability to have a voice. Within our community and within the Black families, we don't really talk about mental illness or mental health conditions. And a lot of times when our behavior begins to shift, we call it something else. We call it she's being rebellious, or she's, in shutdown mode, or she's bad, or she's looking for attention. And the 13-year-old or the child doesn't really have a voice to say, this is how I feel. Like, I don't feel good. You know what I mean? It has always been a thing where it's like, what do you have to be depressed about? You're 13 years old. There's no way you could be depressed. And it's like, I don't know why I feel this way. You know what I mean? Like, I know that I'm a smart student. I know that I'm not a bad kid. I know that I didn't deserve to, feel the way that I felt. However, I felt this way. And so I think the invalidation of, like, parents or the community on what does this Black girl have to be depressed about? She has
Mm-hmm.
everything she needs.
Mm-hmm.
She has a roof over her head. She has clothing on her back. She has food on her table. There's no way she could possibly be depressed. So then that makes the 13-year-old or the youth feel like, okay, maybe I am tripping. You know, maybe there isn't anything wrong with me. And so you start to try to get in where you fit in, because it's like nobody can really hear what I'm saying. Nobody understands that what I'm saying is true. I'm not doing it for attention or anything like that, but this is something that I really feel, whether it's in my mind or in my body. Like, it's still valid. And I think it's so important to just give a child a voice, to just listen to them, you know what I mean, and ask questions. Well, when you feel depressed, what does it make you feel like, or what are the thoughts that you're having, versus shutting that child down.
Right, keeping that open communication, and that's
Exactly.
important. So as we begin to age and dealing with the cycles of depression, when was it? I know, was it before you was in the military? Was it before military or after military that you said you got the diagnosis for bipolar?
Yes, so I was 16 when I was
Okay.
diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And how I got diagnosed with bipolar, I just was really going through like a lot of ups and downs, like a lot of mood changes. I was acting out, you know, I wasn't really listening, I was rebellious. Nobody could really tell me anything. But on the other side of that, like, I was really depressed, had low self-esteem, you know what I mean? So it was really hard for me to find a place to fit in. So it just drove me, literally, like, it felt like I was going crazy. You know what I mean? Because for 2 or 3 weeks, I'm feeling really, really good. I feel like I could do anything. I'm getting good grades, or whatever the case may be. And then a week later, I feel like I'm worthless. I'm ugly. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. And it was just a battle. You know, it would just shift all the time. And so after, you know, trying to talk to family members and, you know, talking to the guidance counselors and teachers at my school and not really getting the answers that I felt I needed, I talked to my aunt who worked at the facility at the time, and I asked her what was the process to check myself in to the psychiatric hospital. And there was a thing at the time called 302. I don't know if you're familiar, but I kind of voluntarily committed myself, along with, I think my aunt signed the papers to get me in. And so I went to the ER, and I was admitted for, I think, 10 days at the time. And then that's where they, of course, you know, sat me down, talked to me, asked me questions, did the testing, whatever the testing is. I'm not really sure. But they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder when I was in the facility.
Okay. And so after that, with that journey, I know it's one of those things is, as much as we like with the journey of dealing with any, I like to say imbalances instead of disorders. I'm always one about the label that we put on things and attach, because you hear people say, oh, that's just my bipolar, or that's my ADHD. When understanding there's certain symptoms that fall in that, but instead of living that label, but during that time period, did it give you more comfort to know what you were experiencing, or did it add more anxiety that now you have this label of this mental health disorder?
Both. And the reason why I say both is because you always want to understand, like, what's going on with you. Like, I know I didn't just go out here and, you know, when you have a mental health imbalance or mental health disorder, whatever you want to call it, sometimes you feel like it's something that you did, something's wrong with you. And so it was important for me to, like, figure out that it's not something that I did wrong that was making me feel less than the person that I was. That there was actually a chemical imbalance, a medical condition going on with me. So that gave me some type of, not closure, but it gave me some answer as to what was going on. And then once I got that answer, I think I was able to process it, even at a young age, and I was able to begin doing my own research as to how can I be better, how can I balance these two sides of me. You know what I mean? And so from there, I was just on a journey and on a mission to heal myself, and I didn't even know if I called it healing at the time. I was 16, so I just wanted to feel better. But ever since the age of 16, and I'm now 39, I've been on a journey to like, what is going on? How can I be better? And it's an everyday battle, an everyday journey. And, you know, I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the ability to, you know, be able to research and connect with other individuals who were able to help me along my path.
Beautiful. I think another thing that is important that when we work with mental health is, it's like if someone's to look at what you be, they say you're wearing it well. You know, you're looking beautiful, but we all know that you have those dark days as well, and that dark side that you have to fight. And one thing people always may try to dismiss because you don't look sick, you don't look like you have a mental health disability and everything. Just tell a little bit about that struggle. I mean, because I know personally, me and Barjohn, we're like peer. I'm a peer support for her and helping her to understand when she's in that manic state and when she's not. Because when you explain for those people that may have family members that deal with other members that may have mood disorders, and understanding those differences in personalities, and even that you sometimes have a different persona about yourself when you're in one stage. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Okay, so to the best of my ability, what it feels like to me, and if I was looking at myself, I would describe it as very like inconsistent. Um, you know, because one moment, not even a moment, but one phase, you're very outgoing. You start all of these projects. You feel like you're on top of the world. You can communicate very effectively. You can do your job like the back of your hand. You're very friendly. Um, you're like the life of the party. You know what I mean? And you begin to develop all of these friendships and even relationships when you're in that manic phase. And then when you go from mania, you kind of fall all the way down to depression. Like there's no in between at that moment. It's from high to a really, really low. And when you're in that low, dark period, you just feel like you're the worst person to ever walk this planet. And, you know, it begins to affect how you talk, how you speak. It affects the type of music you listen to. It affects the way you dress. It affects the ability to do your hair or to like groom yourself. And so, you know, if you see the same people that you ran with when you were in mania and you see them now in depression, they're not going to even recognize you. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of times people stay away and they isolate because it's so noticeable. You know, it's like you're two different people. And so for the outside person or for the family member who's watching their loved one suffer or struggle through those changes, it becomes a thing of like, you know, it's very inconsistent looking, very unreliable sometimes. They may feel like, you know, that person that's suffering is a liar because when you're in one phase, you can't remember what you did in the other phase. You know, it's very, very extreme with your personality and your behaviors. And both sides of the mania and the depression really, really does affect a person's behavior. And it's unfortunate that whenever we go through either phase, that the support, even though you know it's there, it's very hard to reach out. You know what I mean? Because it's embarrassing sometimes. You know what I mean? It's very embarrassing, but I've learned through this process to just stand in my truth, and I've learned that if I begin to just really tell people how I feel, that they can come and assist me through that process. And sometimes it only takes a person to just come by and sit with me, maybe hold my hand and just chill with me, you know?
Right. So as a mom and a parent, because understanding the different roles you have as a woman, whether, you know, a business owner, wife or girlfriend, mother, how has this affected you in any of those roles, and maintaining and feeling safe and grounded during those up and down times? How does it affect relationships?
It affects it on different levels. It really does. And I describe it like the well me has to take care of the sick me, right? So a lot of times you're dealing with different personalities, and then you're a mother, so I have 3 children, so I have 3 kids that I have to love and give attention to and nurture and guide along the way, guide along the way, and sometimes it's really, really hard because I'm trying to nurse myself back to health. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be healthy. And along that path of being healthy, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to deal with your own self when you have bipolar disorder because there's so many phases of it. There's phases that we haven't even talked about. A lot of people talk about the mania and depression, but there's other phases of bipolar as well. And it takes a lot of energy. So as a business owner, as a mother, it is really, really difficult to do. And I learned along this journey that just being open with my kids was very important to my healing because a lot of times I would feel guilty. I would feel like I wasn't a good mother because sometimes I couldn't show up for my kids. You know what I mean? So along the way, we've learned to openly communicate. They tell me when I need cupcakes and conversations, meaning I need to, get some mental health support. And we kind of just made it our thing. You know what I mean? We talk openly about it. But it definitely affects your behavior to the point where you won't show up to work, you won't show up to appointments, you won't show up to any type of commitments because it's hard to get out the door. You know what I mean? And we're not making excuses for it, but I just wish I could have a simulator to allow other people to really feel and understand what a person who suffers in silence goes through. It's difficult.
It's hard. Taking that walk of feeling you're the only one that really understands because nobody really truly knows how you're feeling, and you can appear to be one way, but internally and physically you're going through something else. So
right. And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
To add to what you were saying, because I didn't answer the part about like when you appear to be put together. That is the hard part too, because a lot of people don't realize that the person who looks put together or that wears that mask is actually dying underneath that mask. And sometimes I want to show up like I feel so that people can maybe understand how real it gets. But for the sake of other people, I don't want to show up like that. I don't want to bring attention to that side of me. You understand? Like I'm always trying to cover it up, but at the same time I want people to help me or assist me or be there for me. And so it becomes one of those like imbalances where it's like I want people to understand or see how it really feels. I want to put a camera in my house so that people can understand how real it is before you walk out that door with that mask on. Because there's so many people who struggle in their own homes to the point where they will consider taking their own lives. Like it gets really, really real.
Right. So, and being transparent, if you're open, during your course of battling with over the 23 years, have you been at those points where you wanted to take your life?
Yes, I have had suicidal ideation a lot throughout this journey. I've had 2 suicide attempts. One of my attempts came as recent as last year, 2018. It wasn't the fact that I wanted to kill myself or to die, but I just wanted the pain to end and I wanted my thoughts to cease. And so I was at the point where I was ready to go because it just became that difficult in my mind to deal with. And the thoughts come all the time, but I'm alive today, I feel like, because of my children. Like, I don't want my children to not have their mother. So a lot of us who are mothers or parents, like a lot of us are alive today just because of our kids.
Which is even
more. That's the truth of it. That's the truth.
That's what keeps you going. So it even says a lot for those who may not even have the children or even the family support, because often when you're dealing with mental health, if that family does not understand, it's easier for them to shun you or for you to disattach from the family because of the judgment and lack of understanding, and then having to fight that battle by yourself. So with that journey, and you're one of the ones that takes charge of her healing, what has been most successful for you? I know Barjohn is somebody that I met, and her spirit just spoke to me, and I wanted to introduce her to energy work. And in our conversation, that's when she stated, I want a new way of healing, of dealing with this bipolar besides medication. Share a little bit about how that journey has been, and trying to take more of a holistic approach, and how has it helped you, if you see it's benefited you.
Okay, so I began my holistic healing journey about 3 years ago, I believe. And the reason why I wanted to take a different approach is because I was tired of taking medication. And even on my medication, I still was having episodes. So I wanted to find a way that I could, kind of pay more attention to. So,
Oh, there you go. You're back. Can you hear? The sound went out again. Can't hear you. Let's see. Can anybody else hear me? Is the sound out totally? Let's see. I don't know. Just give us a sec here. Can you hear anything I'm saying? You can just see me. You can't hear me? Okay. 1 second. I'm going to switch computer. Oh, you can hear me because I just start talking and rambling. Give us a moment. Y'all can hear me. You just can't hear B, huh? Let's see. Barjohn, click out and see if you can come back in and see how that does. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. Click out and come back in. Can y'all hear Barjohn? I just can't hear. Are y'all able to hear her voice? Okay. Oh, we almost lost you. So as we try to get through the technical difficulties, so Barjohn can come back and tell her. For those who are just now coming in, what we are discussing is mental health in our families and our communities, and the stigma that is attached with that, and listening to her journey of what she has been very transparent about. And I think this is very important for some of you that are on. We have many family members in our family that are dealing with mental health. Not only that, friends, even those that we may be dating and not even understand that we may be dating people that have mental health disorders. And often that communication is not there because they don't know how to communicate it. They don't know what to say or how to express what they're feeling as well. So we want to make sure. Okay, I think we're back on track. That was my ad lib. Y'all like that? All right. So
we're back.
I don't know where we left. I think you were at the point of how you've been low before, and actually, no, we're talking about your treatment modalities, going to a holistic approach. That's what it is.
Right. So I was interested in the holistic approach because I really wanted to begin looking deeper into myself, and to try to figure out, if there were ways that I could be more responsible for my episodes. You know what I mean? I don't want my episodes to last as long, and I don't want to have as many as I used to have prior to medication or with the medication. So whenever I began researching and asking the universe to introduced me to a new way of healing, you came into my life. You know what I mean? I never heard of energy work before, never heard of Reiki before, but it was something that the universe brought me, and it really, I guess, opened up my mind and opened up my world to look at something different, something that would allow me to tap into my inner self, you know, and begin to let me process and do the work that I needed to do, you know, and to find balance within my mental health as well as my physical health, spiritual health, all of it. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I began that healing journey.
And what would you say the difference? And I always say, even with my clients that see me, the journey of not being on meds is not for everybody, because it does take a different strength and a different mentality. And sometimes the medication is needed to keep you stabilized. What was the difference that you felt from taking a holistic approach and trying the energy work compared to just straight medications and talk therapy? This is where even we have some clinicians that's online, and we as clinicians now are even wanting to develop more effective ways to treat, and realize some of the treatment modalities may not be as effective as we think. So you trying both modalities, or even what we call integrated. What was the change that gave you more power in your healing than before? Was it because you were numb from the meds, or what?
Well, yes, numbing was a part of it, because I'm a very creative person, and I felt like a lot of the side effects to the medication I was taking took away from the person that I really was. Yes, it caused me to be stable this way, but there was no creativity, and it took away from who I really am as a person. And so when I began to tap into the holistic approach, it just allowed me to, like I said, take responsibility for what I was feeling. It allowed me to pay attention to when my episodes were starting to creep in, versus waiting until I'm in a full-blown episode and then, oh my gosh, I need to take medicine, or oh my gosh, I need to go talk to someone. It's like now I can feel when my body is shifting. I can feel when my mind is starting to wander a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, meaning it's either about to be mania or depression. And so whenever I start to feel like, you know, my thoughts are beginning to take control of me, I'm able to say, you know what, maybe I need to just stop right now and meditate, or maybe I need to call someone for a Reiki session. You know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10, I call you, or you know, reach out to me and say it's time for a Reiki session. And
yeah, I have an automatic buzzer for you when you're off balance. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. It just really helps you to, like I said, tap into your inner being. You know what I mean? Like, wait, I'm feeling a little off balance. What is this? Like, what caused me to get here? And then I can kind of, and I'm not saying this is easy. It's not easy by any means, but it helps. It helps you to look at yourself. It helps you to look at your surroundings, and where was I at when I started to feel this emotion, or this, you know, uneasiness, you know, and it just really, really helped me to tap into me, you know what I mean? And sometimes, you know, I do need talk therapy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I can't do this by myself. You know what I mean? This is an everyday journey, everyday process. So sometimes I am going to need a little bit more than just meditation or just Reiki. Sometimes I'm going to need talk therapy. Sometimes I'm going to need to pay attention to what I'm eating, drinking, the people I'm around, you know, and it really does make you more responsible and more aware of your being, you know, and that's what I like about the holistic approach versus just taking medication. Now, when I first started the holistic approach, I definitely was on medication because I needed that to stay stable while I tried to figure out what the holistic approach was going to, you know, help me with. So, you know, it just depends on the individual. But for me, I definitely appreciate the holistic approach.
Good. And I think, like you said, it goes back to that accountability. Often when you're dealing with a mental health disability, you don't feel you have control. And
Right.
really, most important, not control of self. So being able
Right.
to have that sense, I know you stated that you may have your manic cycles still, but they're not as intense or as long because you're able to take a sense of, or feel a sense of control, as where before you felt like you was
Right.
spinning out of control.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. As we're moving forward, I saw one of the questions that someone had asked, and the question was they were wanting to know how your kids were responding or reacting to seeing you go through this. How does it impact them more? And I know your kids; they're like your number one supporters. But again, from the outside, you see one thing, and then what goes on behind your doors at home is another dynamics of it. So
Right.
how is that impacting your kids?
It has impacted my kids on many levels. Um, and it's a very sensitive um, topic for me. My kids are very, very like sensitive to me because, like I said, they are the number one reason why I am choosing to still be here. Um, but outside of that, I just really try to, like I said before, I really try to have open conversation with them because kids are not blind. Kids know when their parent is off balance. Kids know when I'm irritable. They know when I'm depressed. They know when I'm down. They know when I'm happy. They know when I'm too happy. And the too happy can sometimes be mania or
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it affects them to the point where, sometimes I may be real irritable for no reason and I don't want to be bothered. I just want to shut myself off from the world, and my world involves them. And so sometimes I'll find myself in my room and not really wanting to cook dinner or do homework or things like that because my energy is drained.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And a lot of people who knows what depression feels like, not just being depressed, but what depression feels like. It feels like you have this big brick on your chest or this big cement block on your chest and you can't get out of bed. You know what I mean? So it is very difficult, but it's rewarding because when you're open with your kids and you can sit down and say, you know what, mommy's not feeling good today, and this is what it looks like for me. You know how some people are physically sick, they have pains in their stomach, or they have surgery, and they need to go through a healing process. I say, mommy's brain is sick sometimes. Mommy's brain is in pain, and I call it brain pain because that's what it is. Like literally, my head hurts sometimes. And so I explain it to them that way. Mommy's having brain pain. I'm not feeling good. And my kids are very sensitive to it. And they say, well, lay down, mom. Do you need some Advil or whatever the case, you want to go for a walk? And that has been so instrumental in my healing process, just to have my number one supporters, my kids, to be there to say, you know what, maybe you need a walk right now. Maybe you need to take a bath. You know what I mean? It's so key to this healing journey. It's so key to just being transparent with your kids and allowing them to be like, mom, without taking it to the heart. Like, mom, you tripping a little bit. You yelling for no reason.
Right.
And sometimes I have to really like check myself. Like, okay, here I go again. Let me take a step back, breathe, and then I can come back out and deal with my kids accordingly. But yeah, to answer your question, it's difficult.
Do you feel it's important as you was going through your help and getting therapy? Do you think it's important that the kids are involved in therapy as well? Well, have they been involved in therapy, or have you been the only one, or do y'all ever have family therapy?
As of now, I have been the only one in therapy. I would love to go to therapy with my children because even though they show me certain things and we have conversation, you never know how it affects them when they go to school or when they're dealing with other, kids their age or whatever, and kids are starting to have conversations amongst their group of peers about mental health. And so I really do want to make sure that they are okay and that I'm not affecting them, in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do want to go to therapy with my children just so we can all sit around and answer some questions and have a deeper conversation.
Beautiful, beautiful. Often, with a lot of some things that we talk about the generational aspect. Do you know if depression runs in your family? And when I say this, I have to be careful because a lot of times we have mental health issues in our families, but everybody has not gone to get clinically assessed to have a formal diagnosis. But just upon your knowledge, do you know if any of your family members deal with depression? Is this a genetic trait that you're aware of?
Yes, there are people in my family who deal with it as well.
Okay.
And like I said before, within our communities and within our families, a lot of our elders have dealt with depression, but they didn't call it depression. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They called it something else. And so now the conversation is starting to be had within my own family, with some of my elders who have suffered for a long time, but are just now seeking treatment, just now having a conversation. Mm-hmm. And that's refreshing as well.
And that's what I think is beautiful on what you're doing, because within your journey, and that's what, we even go into more for the event at the end of the month, the Sister I Got You Back, and our Power to Pain, our Pain to Power segment is you starting to take this journey of healing. And this is even going into, I always have to bring in the metaphysical approach to healing, is understanding energetically that a lot of these imprints that go through us, through our DNA codes from ancestors that have dealt with stress, anxiety, or depression, that you're at this point that you're taking charge of your healing. Not only are you healing yourself, but energetically, your kids, which were connected to the umbilical cord, really had some of the stress and some of the energetic. So as you heal in this form energetically, even though they're not physically connected, energetically, you're shifting them to heal as well as other family members as well. So I think that is a beautiful thing of even understand. I know another, like, I got to have that duty also, but I think that's what we have to understand as a community as we take ownership of what we're experiencing, so we can heal some of these things that we deal with generational trauma, or the generational things that we pass on, is releasing that pride and that ego to say that I need help so that we can move forward. There was another question. Do you take herbal supplements?
As of right now, no, I do not. Mm-hmm. Do I want to, and should I be? Yes, I should. Okay. I'm trying to get back on track with my whole holistic journey. Like I said, sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not so great, but I take it as it comes, and I'm not, hard on myself anymore. So,
and I think that's what tell about your experience, because we went through this stage with Barjohn. She was doing so well. And what I also try to tell my clients, in this healing process, you're going to get to a point, you're going to peak, and you're going to feel so good. And when you feel so good, you forgot about all the things you have to do to maintain. So tell them about that, when you went through that high and then it dropped back down to a low, and how you had to get readjusted to the medications and the difference of your lows at that point in time.
It's very tricky, especially with, not to take anything away from any of the other diagnoses, but it's very tricky when you have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, because you get to a point where you are very, you feel good. And even when you're in this healing process and you reach that level of okay, I did my work, and sometimes you may feel like I've arrived, like I'm good now. It's an every day, just like you have to take medication every day. Mm-hmm. You have to do your healing work every day. And when I wasn't doing my meditation and I wasn't coming for Reiki, I slowly started to spiral back to where I was before, and not saying that I had to start over, but I had to get myself back out of that dark place. And I know for me, and I'm pretty sure for a lot of other people, if you don't take that medication, if you don't go to therapy, if you don't do that holistic healing, then you are going to spiral back down to that dark place. And that's a place that I don't want to be, and I don't want anyone else to be there. So it's very important to stay on top of, whatever it is you're doing to maintain your stability or to maintain your peace of mind. And for me, that is Reiki, meditation, nature walks, baths. Like, I have to do all of it. All of that is my medication. And when one becomes second nature, or I begin lacking in it, my mental health is definitely affected by it.
Okay. Well, I thank you for your transparency today. Tell them a little bit about your organization, how they can reach you, what you have going on. I know you have the weekly walks or monthly walks, but tell them a little bit about what's going on with SolidShe and how they can reach you.
Okay, so SolidShe Incorporated, like I said, is a 501c3 organization. And we have an event entitled Cupcakes and Conversations, which I'm doing once or bi-monthly at Myers Park Wellness Center or at Friendship Baptist Church. And there I provide a space that is non-judgmental, that people can come out and speak openly about their mental health, about their family members' mental health. It's open to individuals who suffer. It's open to caregivers, family members, peer support specialists, mental health agencies, and people who just want to know more information about mental illness or mental health. We also do nature walks. It's called Walk It Out. And we are trying to get that back once a quarter. And we go to various locations like Crowder's Mountain, South Mountain State Park. We also go to the greenways, and we walk and we talk and we have a good time. And anything that SolidShe does is in the name of good mental health. So we just provide a space where it's comfortable, where we can kind of laugh and share and, get advice from each other. We also do horseback rides. We do kayaking, canoeing trips. We do zip lining, just anything that kind of gets you out of isolation or that dark space. We try to, come with it. So,
do you have a website, or should they just find you on Facebook?
I do have a website. The website is www.solidshe.org, Facebook at SolidShe, and Instagram at SolidShe.
All righty. Well, I thank you so much for you being here, and I think I spelled that wrong. Change that. And sharing your story. And I hope that others that I see that they were some practitioners and other people in the mental health field that was on board listening. And like I said, the fact that you can talk about your journey lets us know that you have healed, or in that process of still healing. We always say healing is a day-to-day journey. But I think that says a lot for you to be able to be an advocate and help those, even when sometimes you're still in the process of helping yourself. So I thank you for all that you do for us, because you stand for all women and anyone dealing with any type of disability that you can do it. So I thank you for being here. For those that are listening, if you have topics that you would like more information on, if anybody has any topics that they would like to speak on and be a part of these talks, please inbox me. Go to my website and check out some of the services that I do offer. If anybody has any interest in trying any energy work or receiving counseling services from my agency, we're here to help you and provide a holistic approach. So I thank you all, and you guys have a wonderful lunch and a wonderful day. Thank you, Barjohn. Continue to be beautiful. Safe travels back. Namaste, my love. I love you.
I love you as well.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.